On the show today, Jacques, I can't have messed it up already. I'm leaving this in. Editor, leave this in. I just spent a whole load of time with this guy figuring out how to spell his name. Jacuzzi, the party scientist. Jacques, it's French. Help me out. Jacques, help me out.
Jacques Martiquet.
Great. I've been watching his videos all day. He looks fun. Leadership stuff around being seen in public, stuff around energizing groups, trusting groups. If you're listening to the podcast, he's got a hat on that says "I love consent" that's bright pink, and is wearing a sequiny kind of disco top. So I think, and he's been recommended to me by Adam Wilder. So Adam, shout out to Adam. You're a good mate. And Jacques, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Mark. You are such a great personality. I feel the vibes. I feel the energy through the screen. I'm sure we've been both figuring out how to transmit these vibes through screens for the last month and a half. Eh?
I totally want to talk about that. That's going to be one of our subjects, because we're both people who energize people, lead people, inspire people, and now we've got to do it on Zoom, right? So let's talk about that. But let's start with you, Jacques. Tell us about your life journey, particularly the kind of body aspects of it. Where did you get started, and what got you interested in what you do now?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, so recently I had two others join my leadership team with Vive, which is my virtual connection agency. And we did a commitment ceremony, and we had the opportunity to share our life stories. And so I think I'll share what's relevant to my specialty, facilitating ecstatic human connection. And I think that there were some critical moments in my life was when my parents divorced, when I got fired from a few positions, and most significantly when I started to journal. And I read a book about mindfulness by Eckhart Tolle, and I started to journal, and I started to really monitor my symptoms, my emotions, and get curious about them. And I actually have a story. I have a story from a significant journal entry, and this was one of the very first. I think this was in 2013, and I was volunteering as an emergency medic at a music festival. And so in the very beginning, my interest in human connection was purely from a public health standpoint. And I think we can both resonate on that, is that human connection is an antidote for a lot of the mental health issues, physical ailments. It's a risk factor for, social isolation is such a risk factor nowadays. And so I worked at music festivals as a medic. And during one of my breaks, I met this crazy man, he was fully crazy, and he led me into the crowd with a toy sword and this spandex Speedo, and I witnessed him change the vibe of about 100 other people around him, just through facial expression and ecstatic body movements. And in my journal entry, I said, I want to be as crazy as him, and I want to impact people like he did. And so that kind of led me on this journey of developing my entertainment, my life of the party, my extroversion. And then lastly, I'll just mention that, I recently went to Envision. So Envision Festival is one of my clients, and it's a great role model for the whole festival industry. And that's when I was really, so I'm a scientist, I'm a pharmacology graduate, and I would like to say my specialty is the pharmacology of human connection. So how does human connection translate to brain chemistry changes? When I went to Envision, I was like, oh, there's so much more than just the science. And I went to breath work, and I discovered all these alternative modalities that really have influenced my practice and my facilitation. And so that was a big step for me as well, is getting immersed in Burning Man and Envision. And, before that I was like, this stuff's kind of weird. It's not scientific, but science
Let
is
me place you a little bit. I'm going to jump in. I hope you don't mind. So where are you growing up? Just geography first of all.
Canada.
In Canada. Okay, so French.
Canada.
French Canadian. Okay, Canada A. Okay. And so you're kind of a geeky scientist guy, but you get interested in leadership, you get interested in how we influence each other's states. You start realizing there's all this cool stuff out there. We're all, every one of us that listens to this podcast pretty much is a drug dealer, whether you're doing yoga. Well, we're all just,
hey, man,
we're just helping people create their own drugs, right?
Dealer, brother.
I mean, like, whether you're dealing endorphins or oxytocin or whatever, right? There's just different drugs you're dealing, and there's all these methods that shift state. And so, tell me about the leadership piece then. So it's really impressive when you see someone who can get a party started, or who can read a poem and make everyone feel really deep and sad and really evoke some emotion in that, And some people seem to have this natural talent for it. What's your angle?
I mean, for me, definitely not a natural talent. Just so much reflection, so much discomfort, and so much pain led to me becoming this facilitator. I mean, I just came back from an expedition through Europe, and that's why we're talking, right? I met Adam Wilder, and I essentially convinced him to invite me to his team retreat because I led an experience at his festival, his Human Connection Festival. And throughout that journey, I put myself into situations where I thought it was 100%, it was going to be 100% failure rate, and I was going to be judged as a crazy person. But what actually happened is I led parties with hundreds of strangers in public spaces. And I think there is an element, it's a unique style of leadership. It's one where overcoming your self-talk, rethinking what is possible to facilitate in public with strangers. And it's really it's a mental battle of overcoming your fear, overcoming social barriers, and being so out there, but so confident that eventually you got your first followers. And of course, being a leader, you need to nurture those first followers and acknowledge them and give them opportunities to shine. So the whole leadership philosophy, it's a whole method for how to catalyze joy in public spaces. And it's like this whole different realm of leadership.
There's a few things here, because people might think of leadership as sort of theoretical, isn't there? But there's this famous YouTube video of the guy who starts crazy dancing, and then everyone starts dancing with him. And, I've seen people do this in public. People go on the tube and start singing, and everyone starts singing the song with them. They're able to sort of transform, and there's lots of YouTube videos that transform the tube carriage. But we are very held back socially. And I've seen this when I've just gone up to people. I was on the phone to someone yesterday, actually, and someone walked by, and, she looked a little sad and also was very beautiful. And I noticed that. And I just said, excuse me, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think you were absolutely lovely today. I just want to wish you well and have a lovely day. And I just walked on, and I was on the phone to someone as I said it. And they were like, you can't do that. What did you just do? Was that a stranger? And I was like, yeah. Now they're smiling and they're really happy. And they look, I wasn't harassing the person. They looked like I had some sense it might be welcome. And they were like, that's a superpower. You just talk to a stranger. And I was like, yeah, now they're smiling. Okay, and I just wanted to but to the person I was speaking to on the phone, it was like I'd done magic.
It is magic because, for one thing, it's very uncommon. And the other thing is that, it is socially acceptable, but we're getting to this point where there's a requirement for such a context. It's like we suddenly need reasons to connect with one another. So there's this whole issue of social trust and how it's related to happiness in cities. And social trust is, one of the questions to evaluate social trust, and this is my scientist perspective getting in here, is if you dropped your wallet, would someone pick it up and give it back to you? That's a great question to ask for evaluating social trust in a city. And right now what we're seeing is very low social trust in cities. And what that means is like, if a stranger comes up to you and just wants to connect with you, you're like skeptical. And so that skepticism is something we need to work around through body language and through not asking for shit, and just, you know, keeping our distance, but smiling. And yeah, so I think, you know, I get high off this stuff. Like, I talk to strangers everywhere, and I get so curious. I met a graffiti artist on a ski bus once, and I just asked them about what they love, and it's like,
that's a great opening question. What do you love is a great opening question, because immediately it brings out people's best sides. I really like that question as a get to know you question. You know, like, what are you into, man? What do you love? You know, different ways to say it. And I've noticed this in COVID. There's been this people standing in supermarket queues. On the one hand, we're even more scared to talk to each other, and it's been sort of legally obliged that we have to keep 2 meters distance. So on the one hand, it's made the social trust less. You know, you could have a disease. You know, someone's dog came up to you. I was like, I want to touch your dog. I don't know where it's been. You know?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've also seen people, this is very British, kind of, you know, make jokes, and in the supermarket queue be like, oh, you're 2 meters away. Okay. And there's a little, like, an excuse to talk kind of thing. And as you say, the key piece there is, how do you build trust? How do you create that sense of safety? Like in this case with the compliment, I think it was the woman in question just really got that it was sincere and wasn't going anywhere. I was on the phone to someone. I wasn't trying to get anything. And which is a gift, and it came across as really feeling really safe and natural and authentic to her. So it was well received, you know? Like, what are the keys to being able to break the social conformity that says, don't do crowd surfing in public, or whatever scheme you've got going on, you know?
Yeah, man, the stuff that I always thought was impossible, that I've achieved in public. I mean, I've been on the tube.
Give us some examples, because I know you've done this crazy shit, but listeners might not.
Yeah. So let me give a few examples. In Berlin, okay. Let me say, first begin with London. So London Halloween, it was me and 2 friends. We turned on our speaker, led a few line dance activities, wandered around the streets with music for an hour. And in that first hour, we recruited about 150 people who stayed with us until 2 a.m. And what we did is we all went on top of a double-decker bus and like turned the bus into a party. And so it was just, it's like, wait, like we don't know one another, but we just like found this guy, and now we're having this shared experience together, and like now we're like a family. It's like we created a family out of a bunch of strangers, right? Another example is just on the tube. On the tube, everyone's disconnected. It's quiet. You know, what we'll do is I have a particular songs that I know. And music is so powerful for connecting people. If everyone knows the song and the song is lighthearted, it can completely transform the vibe in a room and make it safe for people and give people that circumstance to connect. If there's a song on, you can smile at someone and be like, what is this? You know? So
people will always get an excuse, don't they? It's like in Britain, it's complaining about the weather or the COVID thing. Or it's like, we're just waiting for half an excuse to connect.
And that's part of the skill. It's finding an excuse to connect, or making it seem like an excuse, so that people are just like, why are you connecting with me? It's more so like, oh, I'm relating with you. I'm not connecting with you just because it's fun to connect with others. That's kind of weird, right? It's more so, oh, I see why you're connecting with me, and it's not something I need to be concerned about. So we went on the tube, and we start off with a very cold, group of people, and we start with like Careless Whisperer, like do 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 do, and usually I'm in a banana suit, right? Because the banana suit immediately gets people to smile. I'm re-questioning the banana suit because it's not very relatable, but what it certainly does is it gives people permission to be a little bit like an idiot, because I'm much more of an idiot than they are.
There's a gesture. It kind of makes it seem like, well, he's obviously crazy, so let's just go along, have fun with it.
Well, you raised the bar so hard, right? So high. I mean, exaggerating vulnerability and exaggerating mistakes is a great way to as a leader show that it's safe for others to do the same. So if I intentionally embarrass myself on the tube, then I make it safe for others to smile, like way lower on the threshold.
Because they're looking at you and going, listen, no, there's no bad consequences happening to this guy in a banana suit. That, there's probably not going to be a bad consequence for me to just singing along with him. Like, and if the police come, he's clearly the ringleader. Like he's getting arrested before me here. It strikes me there's two joys to what you do. One is connection, sort of the oxytocin, we want to connect, we want to sing together and hug and all that. And the other one is the transgressive quality. And I've enjoyed doing small transgressive things, like standing the wrong way around in a lift. Like if you're going up an elevator and you just turn to face the other way. Now, I'm not trying to bring joy. I like to fuck with people. It's different. I have no interest.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh.
Just to stand the wrong way around. And why is it the wrong way around? Who cares, right? Because it's not illegal. It's not immoral, but it's transgressive. So I like to find those things that are transgressive, and it makes me afraid. And I like that personally. I find there's a thrill in that, and it's like a roller. It's like a social roller coaster. And I'd ask listeners, just try that one. Most people can't do it. You can't do it. It's just, you're physically incapable of just standing the opposite way around because it feels too socially transgressive. So how do you get past that socially transgressive conformity we all have, which says don't do anything weird, or don't talk to a stranger,
Yeah. And I definitely get a thrill out of that too. And the reason why we do crowd surfing is because when people overcome fears, they actually get a high from that fear. So it's like a natural drug. So I use discomfort I get so excited when I do something, like when I bring a mini trampoline into a public subway and start jumping on it and like get people to laugh. I get a huge rush. So how do I think it's first a mindset. It's a mindset that it's not the outcome that matters necessarily. It's that you've taken an attempt to experiment with a new method with a good intention.
Okay.
So I justify my transgressiveness. I mean, I'm going into public and blasting music and dancing in a banana suit. And I mean, like, the most transgressive I've been was on a plane. I've gotten people to clap and sing on planes, right? And that is really transgressive.
Yeah, because people are getting banned from the airline and this sort of thing.
Yeah. And I justify it. I justify it because every time I attempt to do it and I think it's inappropriate, I expand my awareness of what is actually appropriate and possible. The number of times that I've spread joy and had an incredible impact on others where I thought it was completely impossible. Like, we have no idea. Like, the social barriers are total illusions. People want to connect. People want to smile. People want to clap. And, sure, one time when I play Hallelujah when the flight lands, and I get everyone to laugh and clap. And it worked on one flight, but the other flight, like, it was all Germans.
That's what people fear, isn't it, Germans? But no, people fear the social, I told a joke earlier. I was teaching a webinar to 600 people. I told a joke and it just went flat. And it's like, part of me just wanted to die. I'm like, I'm full of myself. Right?
But see, the mindset that I get is like, oh my gosh, this was such a success. Regardless of the outcome, I still attempted to do this. And statistically, I'm always going to fail eventually, but that is a step forward, right?
So the frame is I'm brave to do this. I'm doing something which, because a lot of this is just practice. Like, I'm a fairly transgressive person socially. I view a lot of social situations as sort of playgrounds to explore. And because I found most of the limitations I thought existed just didn't exist. They were purely in my head, and there was so much I could get away with, if nothing else.
Yep. How do we test those ingrained misconceptions if we don't move away from the norm? We won't actually be able to test our ideas of social barriers if we don't attempt to challenge them. So, and I
5 years old though. So like most people do at 5 years old, they transgress, then they learn not to, and then they sort of it's like they become over. I mean, maybe you're just a massive show off. I mean, if people listening to this might be like, look, Mark just likes to cause shit, and Jacques just likes to show off. I mean, is this just a character kind of thing that we should have played out years ago?
I have a totally different philosophy around that. One of my personal affirmations is I get people's attention so that I can transform their mood. Because you cannot transform someone's mood and make their day without having their attention. It's not really possible. Sure. So there's so many people out there who are just there to entertain and to show off and engage people in a passive observational way. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to engage them in the experience, and everything I'm doing, like I try to get people to clap. I mean, oftentimes I'm just, I did the Thriller dance alone on a tube once, and that was just to make people smile and whatnot. But really, it's a matter of shifting your intention around the attention. The intention of the attention is to lift people up and show people that it's okay to wave at others and smile and release positive emotions. Man, we have this huge repression of both negative emotions in our Western culture and positive emotions. You're a crazy person if you're like weeping and crying in public, but also if you're smiling and laughing and dancing in public. It's this crazy dichotomy.
Keep saying interesting things. I'm closing my window because it's cold.
And so what I've realized is that I'm going to be the one giving everyone permission to unleash the joy of simple, monotonous situations. And so many times, we don't see that possibility in very boring situations, but all it takes is a song and someone waving and like clapping to get people being like, oh wait, there's a lot of opportunity in this random train ride, right? Or this airplane ride. And that's the other thing that I wanted to bring up is you were saying the show off part, right? Well, I argue that if we have the ability to impact people in such a powerful way, it's almost like our obligation to get people's attention and to raise their mood. The impact we can have by our own vulnerability and our own public playfulness is, I think, far exceeds the risk of putting a bunch of people in a bad mood. If we're thinking about how to impact people positively, and if we're evaluating like our impact on people's mood, I think that there's a high reward risk ratio for these public acts of silliness and dance and vulnerability. I think there's a huge reward. You're benefiting people massively. And so I think it's a whole different approach to altruism almost.
I think once you know how you could impact people's feeling, it sort of becomes, why would you hold that back in a way? Like, why would I not say a nice thing to that person? Why would I not lift that person's spirit? And there's also an arrogance in it. There's also a kind of, I'm going to influence your mood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like mood influence, whether it be charm, seduction, influence, there's a way in which there's a powerful set of tools there.
Yeah.